No lies, no distortions, just the facts and the truth about issues that matter. Facts First with Krystian Chołaszczyński.
Good evening, I'm Krystian Chołaszczyński and welcome to our episode tonight. It's a Friday. Welcome to the program po uli. Maraming salamat po sa patuloy niyo pong pagtangkilik sa ating programa. Kung napapansin niyo, iba po yung background natin ngayon dahil hindi ko po nabanggit sa inyo during the last two episodes. Nasa Poland po ako ngayon. I'm part of this academic exchange, faculty exchange under the Erasmus program. So I gave a few lectures here in Poland, and of course it has been a very exciting and beautiful experience so far dito sa Poland. So nandito ako sa kanilang school. Nandito po tayo sa Torún, Poland. Yung Torún po, it's a medieval town. Dito po, ito po yung birthplace ni Nicholas Copernicus. Kilala niyo po siya, no? Dahil itinuturo po siya sa ating mga eskwelahan. Okay? So for tonight, meron po tayong pag-uusapan na importante dahil alam po natin na ongoing po yung conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And usually I use this term to make it more apt, okay, about what's really happening in Ukraine. So pag-uusapan po natin ngayong gabi yung invasion ng Russia sa Ukraine. Kumusta na ba siya? Okay? So for tonight, we're fortunate to have a very special guest. I had him before already when I was still with ANC. And now we have him in the flesh as a live guest for tonight. I'd like to welcome to our program, Professor Krystian Chołaszczyński. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, very correct.
Okay, welcome to the program. Welcome. This is not the first time that I'm interviewing you. We had a previous conversation before on ANC. At si Krystian, okay, so I'm Krystian and he's Krystian, okay? Magkatokayo, same name. Si Krystian is a very good friend, a fellow professor. And you are a professor of what again? Political science, international relations also.
International relations, political science, political history, ethnic relations in Africa. This is also my area of interests. So at the beginning, I want to say, dzień dobry, good evening, good morning. In fact, good morning. It's the morning in this moment in Poland. So good morning, welcome. I send to you a warm greetings from Poland, from the beautiful city Torún in the central Poland, to the all Filipino audience. Welcome in the Academy of Social and Media Culture. It's a non-public university in Poland, and we are very proud because for many years we collaborate with the University of Santo Tomas in Manila, and Professor Krystian Chołaszczyński is our visiting professor, and we are very happy that you are here again in Torún, Poland.
Mabait siya, binabola niya ako na, pero those are kind words. I said something in Filipino, but don't worry. I'm not selling you.
Okay.
By the way, si Krystian, siya po ay nakapunta na sa Manila. Okay? Nagturo na po siya sa University of Santo Tomas. He has been to Manila. I'm telling our audience that you've been to Manila.
Yes.
How was it? Sa totoo lang si Krystian, dinala namin siya sa iba't ibang lugar sa Manila. We made him experience street food in Manila.
Yes.
Fishball, kikiam, tokneneng, roadside takoyaki, what else? We also brought him to Anilao for scuba diving. Kaya so takot sa tubig, medyo umatras siya doon eh. Pero he enjoyed the view of the sea. How was the experience?
Experience was amazing. My first trip to Manila was in December 2019. 2019. An amazing experience, amazing time. I ate typically food from Asia, from Philippines. It was also very good, very beautiful places which I saw in Manila, in Anilao, near Tagaytay. I also have been. My dream trip, in fact, it was. So I have hope that someday I will return to the beautiful Manila.
Mabait siya pero makulit yan in person. I told him, you look so behaved, so formal, but he's funnier if the format is different. No, I remember in Manila when you were there, you loved certain food, right?
Yes.
What was your favorite?
In street food?
Anything that you tasted there?
Everything was amazing. Of course, in Europe, you will find some, let's say, Asiatic restaurants.
Asian restaurant.
Asian restaurants. Sorry for that. But in fact, the best Asian food I ate in Asia, because European Asian food it's not so good. So please don't try.
Where? Here in
Here
Torún?
in Europe, here in Europe in general, I think because of the distance.
I beg to disagree. There's
you're
certain
right.
there's certain areas in Europe where Asian food could be good, but in many restaurants in Europe, it's not that good.
It's not that good. Well, the best is in Manila. The best is in Philippines. This is my experience
Yeah.
and my point of view.
That's good because I remember I tried this Chinese restaurant before in Paris. It was quite pricey.
Yes.
Because I wanted to try Chinese food there. It was bad.
Yes,
It was
best.
expensive and it was bad.
In general, in Europe, it's a huge, let's say, fashion to go to the restaurant, Asian cuisine, and try Asian food. It's a form of the fashion. There is not many such restaurants, so it means that it's expensive. But because of the distance, mostly this food are bring to Europe. We are frozen, yeah, are
Frozen.
are frozen,
Yeah.
which means that they are not fresh. Which means that the final effect, what we have on our plates, are not so good like the food prepared by the fresh ingredients. So if I have any, I don't know, audience from Europe, please go to Manila, go to Asia and eat fresh food.
Yeah, so we're promoting Philippine tourism. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because that's
Always.
true. Kasi si Krystian, favorite niya sushi and sashimi. And he told us before na he couldn't find some fresh sashimi here in Poland. It's very difficult, no? Usually it's
very
frozen.
difficult.
So pinatry namin siya ng sashimi in Manila. He loved it. And actually hindi pa yun yung top of the line. So when he returns, we will make him taste better sashimi or Japanese food. Tsaka,
I
even
keep
much
your
better.
words. I keep your promise.
Yeah, that's a promise. Tsaka fun fact, when Krystian was in Manila, he enjoyed Filipino music.
Yeah, shanty dope. Well, what is important that when
Shanty dope.
when I
He loved it.
returned to Poland, of course I didn't understand what Mr. Shanty Dope sang in his songs. But when I returned, of course, the music from his melodies every day during my shaving, I tried to remember. Of course, I found on YouTube. Later, of course, I recognized what kind of the lyrics was in the songs. So I tried to find another musician. But Shanty Dope was for me a symbolic of my trip to Manila.
Which particular song did you like or remember?
Mao.
Okay, Mao. So alam niyo siguro yung Mao, no? I-research nyo na lang. Let's not talk about the details of that particular song. And there was also another artist or group that you liked, right?
Aegis.
Yeah, Aegis. Gusto niyo Aegis.
Aegis. Halik, one of the songs,
Yeah.
one of the song, of course. But yeah, very good. Also, I remember it, and with my fiance many times we dance with Aegis, which played in our home.
Yeah, we would also like to greet his fiancée, Ivona. Yeah, was unfortunately not able to join us because of work. But he was able to listen to Aegis and she loved it also?
Yes. When I was in Manila, I had opportunity to get CD with some songs. Unfortunately, most of the songs were break with CD. Something happened. I don't know what.
Nasira.
But thanks to this CD, I know what kind of the playlist try to find on YouTube. So I found. So together we listening and then sing some things.
Iba rin ang trip niya, no? So Polish guy loving shanty dope, tsaka Aegis. Well, that's a pleasant discovery.
Like we said in Poland, the world is small, and if you really want to understand world, try to understand every country if you have enough time, of course.
Okay. Ito, puntahan na natin yung mismong topic natin because Krystian, I just showed you his personal a view of what kind of person he is. No? He's really a nice guy, learned, very knowledgeable, matalinong tao to. No? So it's not like, I was telling them, you're not like the internet trolls, stupid people. Okay?
Thank you for these kind words.
Okay, sige. Pag-usapan natin ngayon. Kumustahin natin yung Ukraine conflict. Okay? The invasion of Russia the invasion of Ukraine by Russia in February. So it's almost 5 months. How many days? Weeks?
140 days.
140 days.
But what is important, when we are thinking about exactly February 24th, we are thinking about the full invasion, not the beginning of the war, because the beginning of the war was in 2014, when Russia decided to annexation Crimean Peninsula, Peninsula, and took the part of the Donbas region, with Donetsk and Lugansk as, let's say, People's Republic, which also was the effect of some form of treated pro-Russian separatists as an ally of Russia, which means that after 2014, Ukraine lost 3% of their territory.
To Russia. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Before we continue the conversation, siguro, let's put more context into this discussion. You are in Poland, you are Polish. Why does Poland play a very crucial role in this conflict? Your neighbor is Ukraine, and of course, Russia also.
There's many elements which we must underline according to your question. The first one is, of course, our experience. I think a lot of Central European and Eastern European countries has a bad experience with Russia, with Soviet Union, with Russian Empire. For example, Poland in 1795 was divided by our three neighbors. It was called a partition of Poland. So Prussia, Austria and Russia together decided that Poland should not exist. After 123 years, so after the First World War, we was reborn, and immediately after that period, in 1919-1920, we had a huge war with the Soviet Union. After the Soviet Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, the Soviet leader, Lenin and Stalin, decided that they must expand the revolution into the new countries, and the Poland was on the way to the Germany.
You stood in the way, because they had to pass through Poland before they could get to Germany.
We won that 1920 battle, huge battle near Warsaw. We won, so we stopped the expansion of the Bolshevik revolution, and by the next 2 decades, Europe survived. But 1939, and the ally of the two great, let's say the violence, the leader of the bad regimes, Hitler and Stalin together, again invaded Poland, and Poland again was under a two occupation, Nazi Germany and Soviet Union. After 1945, when everyone thought that the war was ended, we still fought because Poland was in the Soviet bloc. So in fact, for us, the end of the Second World War was after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So December 1990, we treat it as the end of the transition, as formal end of the Second World War. So our experience with the Soviet Union, with so many bad experience, so many people were moved to the Siberian part of Russia, so many were murdered, for example, Polish officers in 1940 in Katyn forest, for example. Officers, formal, our army, leader army were murdered, so many generals, colonels. It means that our experience with Russia is bad. We know what does it mean, Russian imperialist tendencies, form of thinking about the world in which they treat the world as a sphere of influence. We know what does it mean that Russians form of collecting Russians' lands in their perspective, of course. What does it mean for Russia, Russians' lands? For example, Crimean Peninsula, for example, a huge part of Ukraine. So this is the first element, bad experience. The second element is of course the problem which was started after 2014, but mainly after the February 2022, so the refugee crisis. According to today's information from the Polish border guard, the border between Poland and Ukraine crossed 4.7 million people. So if we understand that in Ukraine lived 40 million people before the full invasion, so it means that more than 10% escaped.
And went to Poland. But how many stayed?
More or less 3 million. More or less 3 million stayed in Poland permanently.
So far you have around 3 million Ukrainians in Poland.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a huge refugee crisis which we understand, people from Central and Eastern Europe understand, but from Western Europe, we had a huge problem to explain that it's not the end. It's the beginning of the probably bigger crisis, which means, of course, food crisis, another refugee crisis. Health crisis, of course, problem with education, maybe the problem, if Russia will win, problem with other imperialist tendencies into maybe Moldova, into maybe Baltic states, which means Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania.
That's quite bothersome. So, ito lang, I'll speak in Filipino first too.
Okay.
Kasi for others who might not be that familiar with the issue, malalim po yung hugot ng Poland. Yung binabanggit niya kanina, Poland is situated between Germany and Russia. Kaaway nila pareho yan. So malalim yung hugot ni Krystian. Okay. So one thing that bothered me was the last part of your statement. No. So you don't think Putin would stop at parts of Ukraine in case he wins? He would go to the extent of some. Is he really trying to revive the so-called Soviet bloc?
We must understand, because you mentioned the geopolitical aspect of the problem, being between.
Yeah.
This is the main problem of the Central and Eastern European countries. We were and we are still between two the most important states in Europe, Russia on the east and Germany on the west. So what is the worst, for example, geostrategy? Fighting on the two fronts.
Yeah.
It is the worst.
Kaya mahala sa mga Polish. I said, you're in a very bad situation.
Yes, we were in a bad situation and we are still in the bad situation. Of course, Germany was changed. Yeah, the German Ostpolitik was changed. It was, of course, a little exchange into something new, which means the good cooperation with Russia, which is the problem of the EU in general. Yeah. So this is the reason why Germany is, by the long which they were almost neutral. We didn't heard, for example, that saying that Russia's invasion was bad. And Germany was neutral. They didn't want to disturb Russia, and even they still do not want so much help to Ukraine, for example, according to the transport of ammo, I don't know, artillery, cannons, etc. But it's a completely different problem. The biggest problem is Russia, because from the geopolitical perspective which you mentioned, the disaster for Russian people, the biggest disaster was the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So everything which we treat as something good, democratizations, the end of the Cold War, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, less, I don't know, nuclear weapon on the Central and Eastern Europe, because it was removed from this territory after 1991.
Including Ukraine.
Yes, including from the Ukraine. We treated it was good. Okay? The end of this Cold War, what should be better for us?
Yeah.
We started to be the part of the world, not the part of the Soviet Union. But for the Russia, their modernization doesn't mean democratization. It doesn't matter who is in the charge, who is in the power in Russia, Tsar, the first commander of the Communist Party, or the president. It's still the father of nation. So the Russian perspective is, if we want to be empire, we must improve that and growing every year.
Wait. So does it mean that even if the leader were not Putin, that same imperialist tendency would still be there?
Yes, unfortunately, yes, because this is the element of the Russian mentality.
Deeply ingrained.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from the Russian perspective, for the Russians in general, Ukraine was part of the Russia. In the current propaganda, there is a lot of information that in the beginning of the 19th century, it was Russian and must be Russian. So
it has remained.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember in history, right, the Russian tsars before, they made sure to of offensive attacks, right? Because the geography of the area is not really conducive to defending territory.
It is quite interesting element of the Russian mentality, because Russia is so big that they have not power or not possibility to being a good host to all territory. So inside of the Russia is a lot of problems. Electricity, problem with the health system, not so many doctors, a problem with the budget, central budget. So if they want to be empire, they cannot build a lot of, I don't know, ships. or aircrafts. No. The only aspects in which they can improve that they are empire is or aggressions or being in the world. And in fact, the aggression into Ukraine is not so good like they thought at the beginning. It's not like a blitzkrieg, which they are. It was something like they experienced, like after Kazakhstan, Georgia war in 2008, when after a few days they almost everything catch.
It's similar to shock and awe.
Yeah.
But Blitzkrieg is more of German, right?
Yes, exactly. Now it's rather the form of the war which we recognize from the First World War. So every meters, every day. Yeah, something like that.
So that's what you're seeing now, because initially they thought when Putin's Russia invaded Ukraine, it would be swift.
Yeah.
But it has dragged on for nearly 5 months. But is he winning?
Strategically, well, the first battle of the Kyiv, he lost. But according to the typical military strategy, so keep the Donbass, keep the Crimean Peninsula, and create a corridor between these two territories, they are almost win on this aspect. So if Ukraine will be in such pressure from the west, stop the war, and from the east, if you will not stop the war, we will invade into the next territories.
Okay.
Then Russia will be the winner. But what is important? It is the effect of the magician's trick. In this moment, our eyes are on Ukraine. But look at the Africa. Look at the Middle East. How big presence of Russia is on that territory. In January, December, we analyzed that the Russia's presence in Middle East Africa is a little small, according to the.
So it increased over time?
Yes.
Because
for example, Russia is present on Syria. But now we heard, for example, from Mali that Mali do not want French troops. They prefer Russians. There are few countries in Africa which now prefer be closer to Russia. Besides, we heard that Iran maybe also will send some equipment, military equipment, to Russia. Today, I read that Ukraine decided to stop any diplomatic relations with North Korea because North Korea decided to recognize Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic as a sovereign states.
Which were earlier recognized by Putin.
Yeah, exactly. So here we, in Europe, in European Union, discuss with Macron, Olaf Scholz, how to help or not, because France and Germany are not such good, helpers to Ukraine like we are. But in general, the diplomatic activities, Russian diplomatic activities in other territories, Asia, Middle East, Africa, is better, bigger, and their presence are growing.
So Russia or Putin is able to establish a bigger sphere of influence now.
In this moment, yes, because
especially
we are
with the presence
on Ukraine, but we forgot about Iran.
Okay.
We completely forgot about Middle East, their problems. Food crisis now is another weapon in Putin's hand.
Okay. But let's go first to Ukraine. So basically it's winning now. Putin.
Of course, the costs is much big.
Yeah.
But strategically, harbors, Mariupol, is in Russian hands.
Yeah.
Almost, as I remember, 95% of Lugansk region, 70% of Donetsk region, 50% of Kherson region is in Russian hands.
So if the war, or if the invasion stops now, basically Putin would walk away the winner.
Yes, because strategically, the first aim was to make a pacification of Ukraine. Catch the Kyiv, remove Ukrainian authorities, maybe even killed Vladimir Zelensky. It was impossible.
Yeah.
But of course, we are thinking that Russia do not have possibility to catch Kyiv, but was very close.
Yeah.
From Belarus territory, they invaded into Kyiv, and by the few days, they almost were near the border of the capital. It was very close.
Yeah.
But thanks to the help from European countries, especially because of the ammo, weapon, etc., they stopped and removed Russians. So Russia moved all the soldiers to the south. So, of course, the first plan collapsed. By the second plan, and second strategical plan was to make a corridor between Crimea Peninsula and the Donbass region, and also stopped any Ukrainian exports through Black Sea.
Okay, explain that to our audience, why it's very important for Putin to control that region, the south, and why that would spell big trouble for Ukraine, being cut off from the Black Sea. Okay.
We also understand that every year Ukraine produces more or less 50 million tons of agricultural products. Of course, by the last 2-3 years, we prepared a lot of analysis according to the food crisis in the world. This 50 million tons of agricultural product, which now disappeared from the global market, means that this food crisis will be much bigger. From the Russian propaganda, it is a crucial element because Russia has no experience with colonialism. So for Africa, for Middle East, which were the main countries which bought the Ukrainian agricultural products, this disappearance of 50 million tons means that the food crisis will be much bigger. For Russia's propaganda, this war in Ukraine, it is a war against the Nazi fascism in Ukraine.
Supposedly.
But for their propaganda, the real enemy is United States. So the war was started by the United States. So in the message to the Middle East and especially North Africa, it is, look, United States started war. We only defend our rights.
Yeah, that's a
on this
propaganda.
territory. It is a propaganda, but this is very effective propaganda.
Yeah. And even some analysts in the Philippines actually buy that. My position has always been, this is 2022, this is not the way to resolve conflicts. War shouldn't even be an option anymore. But of course, you saw Putin doing that. Now, by the way, just a clarification, because in terms of pronunciation, I think that that is also very important, okay? So what is the proper way of pronouncing the capital city of Ukraine? Kiev?
Well,
What's the proper?
Kyiv.
Kyiv, okay.
Kyiv is the proper. And in Kyiv still, Mr. Vladimir Zelensky is president, which wants to save their own country. It's a war for the future of Ukraine. Ukraine is huge, and in this moment, more than 80,000 square kilometers is in the Russian hands.
Yeah.
So this is the war for the existing of an independent state, which was called, after the dissolution of Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine. Okay. Ukraine has the right to be independent and sovereignty, and has the right to keep their territory together.
And decide for itself, because it's a state, right?
Yes.
So if it wants to join NATO, which is
They have right.
They have a right to join that. Of course, that was the big issue that Putin was saying that he wanted to prevent. And number two, if Ukraine wants to join the EU, it can apply. But of course, whether that would be admitted is another story.
It's completely another story. Because, of course, politically, we, the Polish people, want Ukraine, like Georgia, which was also under huge Russian pressure, immediately in European Union, because for these countries it will mean that they will be safe. But also in European Union, just like in NATO, there are countries which rather thinking that Ukraine in EU means problems for EU. Yeah. Everything is politically.
It will bring more problems than benefits.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
By the way, so what's wrong if because certain news networks pronounce it as Kiev? Is there something wrong with if it's not pronounced as Kyiv?
No. I think also in English, I think Kiev is good. It's also an official name in English. So.
But what is the Russian pronunciation?
Kyiv.
So if you say Kyiv, we're using the pronunciation of Putin.
Yeah, exactly. With the line of the Mr. Putin. So
Kyiv. Let's use Kyiv.
Let's use Kyiv.
Okay. Is it something similar to, let's say, Budapest or Budapest?
But Budapest English, Budapest
Hungarian.
Hungarian.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Words of wisdom, no? Kumusta yung ilong niyo, nosebleed, di ba? Did you get that joke?
No.
Because in the Philippines, when the topic is so heavy, if people seem not to understand the discussion, the joke is, my nose is bleeding.
Okay.
Okay. So, how do you resolve this? You said strategically Putin is winning, right? How do you think this can be resolved? For instance, can we go back to the Minsk agreement and make sure that that is properly implemented, or perhaps expand it? Or it's too late for that?
Well, from our perspective, Minsk agreement was the effect of the Russian and European pressure into Ukraine, because in fact both Minsk agreement was in the line of the Putin's idea what to do with Ukraine. So Minsk agreement was rather, if you do not want the war, you the Ukrainians accept this deal.
It was more of a blackmail.
Yes, because the element of the Minsk deal was federalization. Federalizations for Ukraine means that if Donbass wants to be in Russia, they will have right to do it.
So
for example, after referendum.
Yeah.
So Minsk agreement was for the Ukrainian leaders, you don't have choice. We have to accept this Minsk agreement.
If you don't want
case, if you do not want a war, exactly. So in my opinion, this is what I always afraid. And even before the war, I made a lot of interviews and a lot of articles that I am afraid. After 77 years of the Yalta conference, what I am afraid was another Yalta conference and another bad deal. Because Yalta conference, as you know the history, was the form of dividing the world. And another Yalta conference between Russia, Germany, France, like Minsk agreement, because only these countries together create the future of the Ukraine, which wasn't good. Another such bad deal will mean for Ukraine that they will be weaker, smaller, with more problems.
And more resentment.
Yes, exactly. Because Minsk agreement doesn't finish problems. They open the new one, which the final effect was the full invasion of the Russia into Ukrainian territory.
Okay, Minsk, because that deal was struck in Belarus.
In Belarus,
the capital city.
Yes, Minsk, where the president Alexander Lukashenko is not the non-democratic leader. By many European countries, he's treated as not president because he probably wasn't chosen. He fails in the election, but he decided to change the official.
Okay. So here, in the case of Poland, how long can you sustain the support for Ukraine, and how's the sentiment from the Polish people? Because we know that inflation is also a big problem here in Poland. In the Philippines, last month, the recorded inflation was 6.1%. That was quite high. Here, what's the inflation?
15%.
15%.
15.
15%.
15.
Oh no.
Yes, and probably will be 18-20 in August.
So we know the hardship of the Polish people, and at the same time, you also have been accommodating a huge number of refugees,
Yes.
right? You mentioned 3 million.
More than 3 million are here in Poland, and our local governments used hotels. Private people invited these refugees to their home. What is important, we don't have even one refugee camp in our territory. All of these people were invited to our homes, to our parish, churches, hotels, everywhere where we can use the terrain for helping these people.
Yeah, so this is what friendship is all about.
Yes.
No? Not just
Yes.
token humanitarian help.
Exactly.
So, but how long can you sustain this?
It's quite interesting question because, of course, if we think about refugees, we are thinking also about the end of the war, the end of the war, rebuild the destroying city and returning these people to Ukraine. But everything depends what will be the end of the war. Because if let's say these territories, which now is under the occupations, will be in Russia, these people will have no idea where to return because they will not want to return to the Russia.
They might be permanent refugees, or
Yes,
they might
exactly.
seek what, asylum?
Exactly. Probably yes, because in this moment, our government, Polish government, decided to give to the refugees almost the same rights which have Polish citizens. So they have right to free education, free health system, working, eventually rent a flat if they have some money.
There are now equal rights for Ukrainian people and Polish people
Yes,
in
exactly.
Poland or in Ukraine.
In this moment, our government gave the same rights
That they
to
were
Ukrainian
given.
refugees. Volodymyr Zelensky a few days ago decided to create a special act of parliament and send it to the Verkhovna Rada, so the name of the Ukrainian parliament, the same act like we signed. So Polish people will have the same rights like Ukrainian citizens in Ukraine. So it's a huge partnership in this moment between our presidents and between our nations. Of course, we understand that huge part of these refugees, I don't know how many, everything depends about the next days and how the war will end. But some of them probably will stay in Poland permanently, because they will find some job, some work, a place for living, maybe place also for family, school, etc. So some of them will stay. We understand that, and probably we will create the new law how to resolve this problem with permanent, residence, permanent staying in Poland.
So the point is the Polish government is very accommodating and is very much willing to help, despite your own struggles as well.
Exactly, because we were in similar situations in 1939 when we were divided by our two neighbors, Hitler, Stalin, Nazi Germany and Soviet Union, and many Polish people also escaped to other countries because the system, Russian and German then, was very, very bloody and many people were murdered. So we understand, and I think after Bucha, after Holomodoniec, two cities where the Ukrainian government discovered the graves with the civilians, that the Russian occupational system for civilians are not good. We must also understand that this is a Russian strategy, because the refugee crisis means a huge problems for European Union, and huge problems inside of European Union means that European Union will not be will not create such pressure to Russia to stop the war.
Yeah.
So the Russian strategy is also make civilians as a weapon, and policy of terror is the element of that strategy.
Well, that's bad, but at least the Ukrainian people in other countries have Poland to thank for, right? Because it's very important that you also had this experience before you as a people know what it means to be a refugee, to be victimized by authoritarian regimes, for your human rights to be taken away from you.
Yes, exactly. We have such experience, so this is the reason why we try to be the best for our neighbors, for our friends from the Ukraine. Ukrainians, of course, escaped to many countries, also to Czech Republic, to Romania, to Hungary. Well, Poland is the closest. The kilometers of our borders is the biggest. So mainly to Poland they escape, and we try to do the best. If they want to go somewhere else, where, for example, they have family in Germany, also in Spain, we do this, and we know that also in other countries, local communities, local authorities prepare some places for them. Unfortunately, this war will not stop soon. This war, it doesn't matter. Maybe Ukraine, with the Western help, according to the ammo, cannons, artillery, etc., will have possibility to stop this aggression. But in this moment, this war is like a war in 1914, 1915.
First World War.
Yes. So first artillery fire, and then infantry, which means that a lot of cities are completely destroyed, like Mariupol, like many others.
I saw a photo I was telling him about the photos of Mariupol that I saw before, because I haven't visited Ukraine. I saw old photos before the invasion of Mariupol. It was so grand, so beautiful. And then you can only...
According to the last information which I have, almost 70% of buildings in Mariupol should be not renovated, built from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because there will be no possibility to, I don't know, renovate them.
Yeah.
They are totally destroyed. Mariupol is now a ghost town. And it was a very beautiful city, it's true.
And the Polish have a very dark experience also during the Second World War. The most
Like
devastated
Philippines.
like Manila. Manila was the second most devastated city during the Second World War, right?
The first was
The
Warsaw.
first was Warsaw. Yeah, we're around 3 hours away from Warsaw by train, and their train system is so good.
Yes, we are proud of that. We had a new train system and the new roads, but we needed many years to rebuild, like Manila. Also, you needed many years to not renovate, rebuild from the beginning your capital. Kyiv survived, but Mariupol and many other cities in Ukraine are totally destroyed, which means that Ukraine will need a lot of money to rebuild cities, not rebuild economical positions. It will take a much longer time, and they will need much bigger money than for the only rebuilding.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Krystian, for that insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for invitation. Just like last time, I will say the same. For my friends from Filipino, I am every time to your disposal.
Ganun ba? Sige, abusuhin pa natin siya. I was telling them, I would like to abuse you even more. No. He has been such a good host, such a good friend, a fellow academic here in Poland. We're looking forward to his visit to Manila within the year.
I
probably?
think yes. I think November, October, something like that. I will be in Manila.
So when he returns to Manila later this year, we will shoot another episode with him, and perhaps siguro we can shoot an episode on the streets so we could see the authentic feel of Manila streets.
Thank you.
Okay, Krystian, thank you very much.
Thank you
It's
very
been
much.
a pleasure. Okay? So guys, dyan po nagtatapos ang ating... How does our language sound to you, by the way?
Beautiful.
Okay.
I do not understand. There is no similarity in words between Tagalog,
Filipino, but based in Tagalog.
There is no similarity between Filipino and any other language which I know.
Talaga ba?
So I do not understand your words, but for what I hear, it's very beautiful language.
Talaga?
I have no idea what you said in this moment.
I said really?
Yes, really.
Okay. Their language is also so difficult for me as a Filipino. For example, his surname is very difficult to pronounce. I don't know whether I got it correctly. Chołaszczyński. Chołaszczyński. Yeah, and I had to double check my spelling before I placed it here. Yan.
Yes, it's correct.
Okay, so mag-iikot muna kami. We're going to see a museum with another professor, si Professor Felipe Salvosa and Professor Joselito Zulueta. Yeah, was also part of this exchange. Dapat kasi dati na to eh. And there was a pandemic na. We were supposed to come.
Yes, in
earlier.
April 2020.
Yeah,
there was a plan because we had a huge conference about media and the situation in media. But in March 2020, pandemic time, lockdown. So we moved our conference from physically into online. Conference was a huge success. We published a book, we record everything. It was amazing. But in personal, I prefer when I have my guests physically and online.
Okay, mabait. I'm telling them you're a good guy. And by the way, here in Poland, it's basically back to normal, no?
According to what?
To your health ministry.
Yes. April the 1st, our health ministry officially declared that
the end of the pandemic
time is ended. All restrictions were removed. So formally, it's a normality, but new normality, old normality, I think it will be the topic for another meeting.
Okay. O sige, maraming salamat po. I hope marami kayo napulot. Medyo nosebleed yung topic natin ngayon. It's about the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. But that was a good lesson in history coming from a guy, a real expert. Okay? So maraming salamat po. And thank you for joining us tonight. See you again next week. Okay. Maraming salamat po.